can't remember. I thought about you today for my sermon, and I can't remember what it was. No, I didn't drop cigarettes today. I know. Oh, here we go. Okay, here's good. You saw it? Oh, that's what it was called. Oh, yeah, baby. Maybe I dropped PBR tonight. I don't remember. I think I am. What? Dude, I mean, the whole... We just tell students to make sure they sit every other row, but besides that, they can sit the cheap. There, so you got that.
I was back there looking at shirts and I looked up and there's a line and I was like, they're not in line for the company.
Put your face up there. Let them know.
Hey, so I have a question. Do they see?
They're definitely seeing it. It's about to come up. Yeah, y'all should start. Hey, Sarah, y'all should start. has swag too. On the announcements, you have to.
So to get that faster, instead of just getting it from the Instagram Instagram. You can also text RUF to 64600 to receive a weekly text, so you would get that. You can also scan the QR code at the bottom and fill out the UT interest form. That'd also be cool. FallCon is canceled. That stinks, but we had to cancel, and it's just how it is, COVID and all. But we're planning something super epic for that weekend, so stay tuned. Freshman hike this Sunday at 3 p.m. Look on the Insta or get a weekly text to know where, or you can contact our female intern, Emily Anderson. She is also epic. We're doing a little Corona Clause thing, so like if you or a friend have COVID or you're self-isolating because of the exposure, you can sign up with the QR code below for a care package from the UTK RUF leadership team. And oh yeah, y'all see this? Y'all see this? $5. That's it. 5 US currency. They're right there. Same with the mugs. Only $5. I've never seen a hat this for $5. I'm gonna be straight. I'm kind of a hat enthusiast. Have not really seen it. So this is a once in a lifetime deal right here. You can't miss it. So get one on your way out. Then $5 to UTK_RUF. All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep singing. Yeah.
His mercy is love. So we come to you, Lord, empty and broken, Lord, and we just ask that you pour your
Y'all can be seated. Y'all, it's week 3. We're here. We're still here. We're still doing this thing. So, some squirrels trying to get us down, all right? But we're still here. And so thanks for being patient with us as we navigate the university and guidelines like kickball and fall conference. So we're trying to navigate that. The best ways to stay up to date is either Instagram or text that number. So sorry about that for the change of time, but that's just kind of where we're at. And yeah, we're still here doing it, so y'all are awesome. And then I do want to highlight the care packages. We had like 30 people sign up so far. We've got them down in the basement. We're going to hand them out. The basement's where my office is. It's not like there's just random care things in the basement, but that's where my office is. We're going to hand those out this week. So if you or a friend need encouragement because you're self-isolating, what's up, people on the Zoom or live YouTube stream, sign up on the QR link. And then also, there are free cups up here too. And then there are t-shirts in the back. If you want a t-shirt and you haven't ordered one, it's $20 for the white and $17 for the blue. So they're in the back. You can get those and just Venmo me. So glad everyone's here. If you're new or checking this out, what is RUF? RUF is a community of people that are trying to grow in love. Love of God and love of each other and the university, that we might be a blessing to the world. Because we're actually bound by this greater conviction that God first loved us. Not because we deserved it or did anything to earn it, but because he chose to delight in us. And it's amazing. And so because of that, we believe no matter who you are, we're glad you're here. Whether you are someone who is colorblind, glad you're here. If you're someone who doesn't drink coffee, you're a tea person. We're glad you're here. If you like to pet goats, I feel that. I love petting goats. We're glad you're here. No matter who you are, we're glad you're here. And we invite you to come rest in Jesus and his love and hopefully make some friends. And so this semester we're going through a sermon series through the Gospel of John entitled Streams in the Desert, Finding the Fullness of God in Empty Places. And in the book of Exodus in the Old Testament, God rescues his people from slavery in Egypt from 400 years. And he doesn't immediately bring them to the land of Canaan of milk and honey, but he first brings them into the wilderness. But in the wilderness, in the desert, is where God makes his life with them. That he brings streams in the desert. That in the empty places of our lives, God is the kind of God who shows up and brings us fullness. That's just who God is. And so every week we need to be reminded of that. And so we look at Jesus and the Gospel of John and ask ourselves this question: how does God, through Jesus, bring his fullness into our emptiness? And last week we looked at praying mantises. And we asked ourselves, how does Jesus invite us to explore our desires and what we really want is him? And this week we're going to look at this. How does Jesus bring joy in our disappointments and in our emptiness? How does Jesus bring joy? Because what's amazing tonight as we look at John 2, that the first miracle of Jesus, his public ministry, he gets ordained, he goes out to do public ministry, it's at a wedding. Now why? I mean, this is a small, rural, obscure teenage wedding where Jesus, at the end of the wedding, when everyone's already drunk, fills up 150 gallons of water and turns it into wine. Like, if you go to the T-Rex, I don't know if y'all have these people here, and if you're here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And they, the muscle shirts, and they carry the milk jugs around, right, with water. I want you to imagine, again, well, anyone's welcome, so I'm glad you're here. I want you to imagine 150 of those guys standing next to each other with those milk jugs. And Jesus snaps his finger and it turns into wine. That's what he does in our passage. Why? Like, what in the world is going on? I mean, again, I'm going to reiterate this. The first thing Jesus does with his disciples, last week we looked at John 1 where he calls his disciples. 7 days later, this wedding happens. The first thing he does is he takes them to a wedding feast. Like, if you were like, hey, Mike, I'd love for you to disciple me, I'd be like, hey, first of all, Jesus is our discipler, and second of all, let's go to Backroads or be in a coffee or K-Brew. I would cross my legs and we talk about the Enneagram in your child wounds. Like, that's what I would do. That's what I would do if that happened. Jesus says, let's go to a wedding. Let's go to a wedding. Why? Why would Jesus do that? There's this guy named John Calvin who's from the 1600s. This is a bad dude. I mean, he is super smart and helped kickstart the Protestant Reformation. One of the things he says is back then the Roman Catholic priests were forbidden to attend weddings because of the debauchery that occurred at weddings. But Calvin says we should follow the example of Jesus, who carries the gravity of himself to such places where licentiousness occurs. Jesus provides abundant wine, though he is the teacher of sobriety. You get the hint that Calvin is like if Jesus showed up in Knoxville, he would bring the gravity of himself to the fort. Like there's something about Jesus that transcends this licentiousness and the debauchery, and there's something about him. What's going on? Why a wedding? And we get a hint from verse 11. It's on your little handout, where it says, "This, the first of Jesus' signs, Jesus did," where he turns the water into wine, "at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him." The whole reason Jesus did this, John says, is because it's a sign. It's a sign. Now, the water that got turned into wine was hardly mentioned. You don't even like see it in our passage. It's not a big deal. Why? Because it's not about that. It's actually about a sign. Signs, remember, are things that point to a reality beyond themselves. So you see a stop sign and you stop because it points to the reality there's an intersection where things could occur. Or a girl doesn't text you back after you've texted her 4 times. It's a sign of a greater reality that she's probably not interested in you and you're going to be okay. So what great reality is Jesus pointing us to by turning 150 gallons of water into wine for people who are already drunk? Jesus wants to bring you joy. He wants to bring you joy. Now, some of you might have a few objections to this, and I can think of mainly 2. The first is what I'm going to call the killjoy objection, or what I call the summer orientation guy. When I was at Arkansas, all the campus ministries had one table that you welcome people at summer orientation. And this guy came by like, "Hey, are you interested in campus ministries or spiritual life on campus?" And he goes, "Maybe next year." I was like, "I gotcha. I know what you were excited about this year." 15 minutes later, he came back around with his mom. And his mom was like, "Timmy's so excited about campus ministry." And I looked at him and kind of had that knowing look. And I was like, "I got you, dude. It's okay. I won't tell her." Jesus is a killjoy. I want to get my thing in college. I want to have my fun, have experiences. And that will give me more joy than Jesus. So I'm going to do that first, and then Jesus is kind of like the extra thing. Friedrich Nietzsche said his greatest critique of Christianity is that Christianity enslaves desire. Okay, so maybe some of your objections tonight is, well, Jesus is kind of a killjoy. Or some of you, and this is what I call Jesus is a joy thief. And we can look at Toby Flenderson for this from The Office. And he goes to Jim and Pam's christening or baptism for their kid, and they're at a church, and there's a giant picture of Jesus. And he just looks up at the picture and says, "Why do you have to be so mean to me?" Life is hard for Toby Flenderson. And maybe for some of you, life has been hard. And life feels like one big disappointment. And with COVID and isolation and being sent home and loneliness and tragedy and riots happening, and you just think, Jesus seems to be more of a taker than a giver. He's a joy thief. And here's what I want to encourage us tonight, is that the story of the Bible says that Jesus is somebody who gives joy. That God gives joy. He gives Abraham a child. He gives Joseph dreams. David, he gives a giant's head. Daniel, interpretations. And Jesus gives empty cups full of wine. Blind people sight. He gives outcasts a home and prostitutes forgiveness. Because Jesus came to bring joy. And you know all those myths, those Greek and Roman myths about Bacchus and Dionysius and all that, where there's rivers of wine and feasting and joy and dancing and laughing? It's true. They all kind of hint at this greater reality of God who made the world wants to give that to us. And so if you have a trouble with Jesus and your disappointments, I want us, as we read the passage, to have an open mind that perhaps tonight, right now, Jesus wants to bring you joy. And so we're going to do this thing with your masks, and hopefully you're sitting with people you know. We're going to have you ask a couple questions to them for 2 minutes to get you in the mood to have joy. And the first question is, would you rather have a pet, a chicken with its head cut off, or horse with no legs? That's the first question. And then second question is, did you resonate more with the killjoy or the joy thief objection? And then third, what gives you joy? So what pet do you want? Head cut off chicken, horse with legs, What objectives do you resonate with? And then what gives you joy? Just spend 2 minutes on that, and then we'll come and get into our text. Why do you think Jesus responds to his mom the way he does? I mean, this is his mom. Why does he respond to her the way he was? Hear now the good news of a God who wants to bring joy in the midst of your emptiness. John 2:1. On the third day there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. And when the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." And his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. And Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And Jesus said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. And when the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you've kept the good wine until now." This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. This is God's word. It's absolutely true, and it's given to you in love. Let me pray. Lord, thank you. Thank you so much for this passage. In the midst of so much disappointment and sadness, of feeling like so many things just get taken from us, in this kind of culture of fear that if we do anything wrong, the hammer's going to come down on us. And so, Lord, I pray that we would have open minds and hearts to receive your joy tonight and your desire for us. In Christ's name I pray, amen. All right, so I want to talk about 3 things. I want to talk about we have to learn that we're empty, or that we're disappointed. We have to learn that we're empty. We're disappointed. Secondly, we have to look to Jesus for joy. And then third, how do we receive the joy when we do that? So learn that we're empty, look to Jesus for joy, and how do we receive this joy from Jesus? So first, we have to learn that we're empty. And by empty and disappointed, I mean there's nothing in the red Solo cup anymore. Okay? I mean the keg is tapped. It's gone. It's empty. You can't get out of bed in the morning. At night, you just scroll on Instagram over and over again, hoping to find some spark of joy and life, and nothing's there, right? You are empty. That's what I mean. Now look, when you go to a wedding, or we go to a wedding today, a modern wedding, if it's outdoors, right, it's sunny, it might be muggy, the groom is sweating a little bit, and then the bride comes, and he's crying, and they're sweating and crying, and then the minister prattles on about who cares what, let's get to the reception, and then you get to the reception, there's dancing, and toast, and fried chicken, and cutting of the cake, and then you go home. That's a wedding, right? But look, in the ancient Near East, a wedding lasted for 3 to 7 days, okay? They got after it. Imagine having your in-laws crash at your couch for 7 days. No wonder they were drinking wine, and the wine ran out. Like, you can kind of understand a little what's going on there. Now look, I want you to imagine what the wedding would have been like for them when Jesus shows up. The groomsmen are giving the groom a hard time. Raise a glass of freedom, something you will never see again. The bridesmaids are painting nails, they're helping the bride get ready. There's passive-aggressive comments by the mother-in-law about the florist and the arrangement. You can imagine the scene, right? You know why you have to imagine it? Because John doesn't tell you. He doesn't tell you anything about this wedding. The only thing he tells you is in verse 3. The wine ran out. That's all you know about this wedding. And the mother of Jesus said, they have no wine. You have to understand how disappointing this would have been. How embarrassing this would have been for the groom, whose whole job was to get the wine. That's it. That's his whole job, and he screws it up. And wine was the heart of the Jewish feast, the Jewish wedding. At the heart of it was wine. The Aramaic root word for wine and for feast is the same. It's like having a wine party without wine. It's like having a bridal party without a bride. A baseball game without a baseball. The sea without a sea turtle. Okay, it is not, this is the most important thing. You have to have the wine at a Jewish wedding. Okay, the groom had one job and he screwed it up. Welcome to marriage. And what Jesus is trying to say, what John's subtly trying to say, is that, wine equals joy for the Jewish person. In the Bible, when you talked about wine, it meant joy. This is why in Amos 9, the book in the Old Testament, it talks about rivers, these salvific rivers of wine flowing down the mountainside, bringing joy and life and love and celebration. Like when God's kingdom comes, he's bringing joy. That's what he's trying to say. But now, the party's over. The keg is tapped. It's so embarrassing. It's so disappointing. And really, to some degree, we're all kind of like this groom, just a little bit. We all go to something and we drink it all up, thinking this thing will give me joy. And then it's empty. And we realize we're disappointed. This didn't give me what I thought it was going to give me. It didn't work. See, what John is trying to say is eventually, if it's not rooted in Jesus, the wine will eventually run out. You'll drink it all. And you'll still not be satisfied. And we all have that thing. I could share this story for all of you. This is my story. I was intoxicated most of my life by winning people's approval. The wine of people's approval. I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to think I was funny. I was the funny guy in my family. And, in high school, I was voted Athlete of the Year. And I was such a good athlete. My high school was so competitive. I played 2 years of Division III football and didn't even start. And I lost 30 pounds. I broke my ankle, and I was a mess in college. I was a complete mess. I did tons of things in secret that I'm ashamed of to cope with the emptiness I felt. I was empty, and then I'll never forget in my dorm room reading Romans 5:8, where it's while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I was man, Christ saw me in my emptiness, my worst moments, and he died for me. I've never gotten over it. He's poured, God's love has been poured into my heart. He filled my emptiness. And I was running to all these other things for joy. And Jesus is no, you want me. And once you've tasted the fullness, the heady red wine of Jesus, these other things just won't add up. That's the claim of John 2. Because he's our real joy. So the first thing is we have to learn that apart from Jesus, we're empty. These other things are great, they're wonderful, but if we're looking to that for ultimate joy, eventually it's going to dry out. That's the first point. But secondly, we need, in our circumstances and right now in our disappointment, to look to Jesus for our joy. And this is what we see with Mary. Oh, Mary. Look at verse 4. The wine runs out, they have no wine, and when the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to Jesus, they have no wine. He goes to him, right? She looks to Jesus. Now, And Jesus goes, woman, what does that have to do with me? My hour's not yet come. And now, why does Mary go to Jesus? You ever thought that? He hasn't done any miracles yet. Joseph probably was not in the picture anymore. His dad, he was the oldest brother of a lot of kids. Maybe he had proved himself reliable, dependable. And so maybe Mary right here is manipulating Jesus a little bit as a mother, a little passive-aggressive, He's like, woman, this doesn't have to do with me. She kind of like grabs his elbow and is like, just do whatever he says. Like, he'll take care of it. He loves me. I'm his mom. Maybe that's what's going on. But she looks to Jesus, right? Now, Jesus goes, all right. I don't know how he says it. He's like, all right, do this instead. Take those Jewish purification jars. There's 6 of them. Go to the well. Come back and fill them up. Now, this would have taken hours, y'all. Hours to do this. 20 to 30 gallons for each water. You see the glassy water on top of the jars? Sloshing around. It's filled to the brim, and then they take like a hipster glass, or maybe a ladle, we don't know. Scholars are still trying to figure that out. But they have that, and they take it out, and then they take it to the master of the feast. And this is what happens. Draw some out, take it to the master of the feast. So they did it. The master of the feast tasted the water now become wine, and he did not know where it came from. And he calls the groom, and he's like, dude, this is not how you throw a party. Everyone serves the good wine first. Because they know it's good. But then when they've drunk freely, then you give them the bad stuff, right? And this is the master of the feast. I don't know if you guys know what his job was. He was an official partier, okay? This guy was hired to make the party happen. He laughed, he danced, he told jokes. And some of you are like, is this still available in Jewish circles? Like, can I do this job? And look, here's the thing. He is struggling because there's no wine at the party. People are grumbling and complaining, people are leaving, and then the master of the feast tastes this wine, and his eyes brighten. And he tells the groom as he puts his arm around him, he's like, this is not how you throw a party. Oh, you've given me PBR and Natty Light, and now you've got this heady, pernicious IPA. Like, where was this? Dude, this is not how you throw a party. And look, if you think I'm making this up, in the Greek, where it says everyone serves the good wine first, but when the people have drunk freely, literally translated, it means when their head is light. When they're inebriated, they're lightheaded from the alcohol. That's when you bring out the cheap stuff. You're doing it all wrong, groom. This is not how you throw a party. Why? What is John teaching us? Why is that detail here? Because only when you are completely empty and spent on other things can God fill you. It's only until you've drank all the other things that we go to for joy that finally Jesus can fill us. Because we want to dilute God's joy. We want to kind of use him as a top-off. We want to do our thing and then have God fill us up. But that would be like taking Folgers coffee, or the Double D, Dunkin' Donuts, and going to Honeybee or Remedy and wearing tight jeans and, holes in it. Don't judge me. And you go in there and you're like, hey, I got some Folgers. Can you just top it off with some of it? They would be offended. Like, get out of here. That's not what we do here. We're not going to dilute this wonderful coffee. And Jesus is trying to teach us that when you go to God to top it off, you dilute the joy that he's trying to give you. You'll ruin it. It's kind of like, do you guys remember C.S. Lewis? He had this famous thing with these kids who are playing in sand and dirt. And it's like they have a holiday offered to them. Like their parents are like, hey, we're gonna go to Vegas or Disney. I do not recommend taking kids to Vegas. I don't take my kids to Vegas. Corona's been hard, y'all. So good. But he's like, hey, we're going to go to Disney World. And the kids are like, no, I want to play here in the dirt, Dad. And Jesus is like, get that dirt out of here. You have no idea what I'm offering you. And you're going to play with that? I'm offering you true joy. I'm offering you Disney World. Come with me. I'm offering you true heady wine. Throw that stuff out. So again, before the third point, what are you drinking, right? What's in the red Solo cup? Is it a relationship? Is it grades? Is it your likes on social media? Is it your body image? What is it? If that's the ultimate thing that you're looking to for joy, the joy will run out. The cup will run out, the wine will run out. That's what he's saying. But it's when you finally learn that you're empty that Jesus can fill you. That's a beautiful thing. He wants to bring you joy. So thirdly, how do we receive this joy then? How do we receive it? How is it possible in our disappointments? There's two ways that he says. One is the jars, and one is looking at this cryptic statement of Jesus. So first, the jars. Okay, there were 6 jars, which in Jewish numerology means incompleteness, imperfection. And by the way, Jesus, this is the first of his signs. There are 7 signs in John, which means perfection. It's pretty cool, whatever. Side note. So there's 6 jars, and what Jewish people would do when you went to the temple to worship, you would cleanse yourself before you worshiped. You would wash your body and your hands. That'd be like today going to church or RUF and we set up a shower out there for you to cleanse yourself, right? Now, why would they do that? It was a sign. The point that their external cleansing was actually that they needed to be internally cleansed. It was a sign that they were dirty, that they were a sinner, that they were marred, they were broken, and they needed something to purify them. And the water did that. It was a sign, it was a symbol. Jesus is saying by using those jars, you don't need that water anymore. Because you'd have to purify yourself over and over and over again. Jesus is saying, you need something more. You need something thicker. You need wine. You need my blood. You need me to be the source of your cleansing. And y'all, he does it like over abundantly. They were already drunk. It was at the end of the feast. There's no way that small, rural, obscure wedding was going to drink all that. Why does Jesus do that? Because he wants you to know his cleansing, his grace will never run out. It's overabundant. That's the first way of how we receive it, by looking to Jesus and his blood on the cross and what he did for us. Secondly, the hours. Now look, I know you guys want to know this woman comment. I do too. Like, what's going on there? Now, back then, a woman would have been more like us saying ma'am, or like miss. Like, ma'am, miss, what does this have to do with me? And Jesus is trying to distance himself from his mom. He's trying to say, like, you've got to start looking at me not as your son, but as the Son of God. Because you need something from me too. And Jesus goes, my hour has not yet come. Now, what does that mean? Because hour, in John, anytime you hear hour, it refers to the death of Jesus on the cross. So anytime you read John and you read hour, Jesus is talking about his death. And what he's saying is, I'm not the groom for this wedding. I'm not supposed to provide the wine for this wedding. That's not my job. What he's saying is, I've got a different wedding that I'm supposed to provide wine for. I'm supposed to provide wine for my wedding. Jesus at this wedding is thinking about his own wedding. Now, if you're a single lady, or a man, I guess, and you go to a wedding, most of the time you might be thinking about your own wedding, right? I wouldn't have chosen those colors. Okay, outdoors in this heat, like you're kind of thinking about your own wedding, right? And while everyone is laughing and dancing and drinking and having a good time, you see Jesus right there in the corner. He's thinking about his wedding, about his hour, his death. Because the Bible talks a lot of different ways that God relates to his people. He's a father to his children. He's the vine, we're the branches. He's the king, we're his subjects. He's the teacher, we're his disciples. But the best way, the most common way Jesus describes himself to us is that he's the groom and we're the bride. He's got a wedding coming. And Jesus at this wedding is thinking, how am I going to provide wine? How do I make sure the wine doesn't run out? How do I provide joy for my people that will never go away, that no circumstance, no disappointment will ever take from them? And you realize, it's like, I got to give my life. I got to give my life for these people so that they will always have joy. Tim Keller says, Jesus, in the midst of this wedding, is sipping on his coming sorrow. He's sipping the glass of wine, and he's sipping his coming sorrow. And you see it, right? Like, he is giving up his joy so that you wouldn't have to taste any more sorrow. He's looking forward to his coming sorrow so that you can look forward to your coming joy. One of the main claims of Christianity and the cross is that Jesus dies for your sins and then rises to new life, which means whatever mistake you've made, whatever's in that red Solo coat, Jesus does not care because he died for you. He buried it in the grave. And that means it doesn't have any more power over you. Like his joy, that's where the joy comes from. You know what I mean? Like that's where it comes from. He fills your emptiness by dying for you. Always distracts me. Joy is not found in your circumstances or what you've done or what you're going to do. It is rooted in what Jesus has done for you. That's the point. And so sorrow and disappointment is not the end of your story. The end of the story for Christians is joy. That's what Jesus is trying to say. So 2 little quick things of what this means for us, and then we'll close with a wedding. I'm getting married again. Covenant renewal. It's going to be amazing. No, it's a story about a wedding. Okay, so 2 things. One is God cares about the little things. This is a country wedding that no one has been to. It's obscure. It's teenagers. He never had to do it. And Jesus provides abundantly. Whatever little thing is in your life that you think nobody cares about, you feel misunderstood, your grades, the way you look, the way you feel, Jesus cares. Jesus cares about the little things. He wants to give you joy in the little things, because oftentimes in our life, the little things are what kind of has the most power over us. And he wants to care for that abundantly. And then secondly, and this might be weird for you, especially if you're a dude to hear this, but God is making you beautiful. Jesus came to bring you joy, which means he's making you beautiful. Some of you feel ugly with your looks, your personality, your gift set, your skills, your family background. You feel like a waste of space. And one of the greatest things about weddings, y'all, is how beautiful the bride looks, right? It's the most beautiful thing. As a privilege, as a minister, I get to see a lot of brides come down the aisle. They're always beautiful. They're always beautiful. And the groom, you look at the groom and he's just like delighted in his bride. And everyone's looking at the bride and then the groom crying, and then the bride again, smiling, crying. You know, it's like this. God is making you beautiful. And if you want to know what God thinks of you, go to a wedding and look at the groom looking at the bride. That's what God thinks of you. Because you're the bride. He's the groom. You want to know what God thinks of you? You want to know how he delights in you? Look at the groom as he loses himself with his bride coming down the aisle, right? There's a wedding coming with the headiest wine. And God has provided the wine. He's provided the joy. So let me conclude with this. Just like Jesus, this passage made me think about my own wedding. My wife is right here, Deanna. She's beautiful. And really any wedding I go to, I kind of think about my own wedding. Just that narcissistic. But 10 years ago, my wife and I got married. And I still remember the church, and the doors opened up. My wife silhouetted with the window panes behind her. Right? And then she steps out from the shadows, and I lost it. She's got this beautiful flowing dress. Her hair is done up. She's holding these purple tulip flowers. She's got this pearl necklace I gave her, just piercing green eyes, and I'm like, I'm undone. Because that's my bride. I'm like, oh man, she's beautiful. It's my bride. And literally, I had no idea what the minister said. I have no idea what he said. I don't care. I got to listen. The whole time I'm like, oh my gosh, my bride. At the reception, it stopped at 10. The bar shut down at 10. But everyone's still there dancing, having a good time. It's a wedding. It's full of joy. And Deanna's mom goes, this can't happen. Goes to the bar, pays thousands of dollars to keep it open for 2 more hours. And people danced and drank for 2 more hours. Everyone we talked to says that was like one of the best weddings they've ever been to, because their glasses were empty and Deanna's mom filled them. Okay, like that's why that wedding was amazing. Listen to me. Everyone there didn't deserve that. They did nothing to deserve that joy. And it was overabundant. It was fullness. It was overflowing. That's what Jesus wants to bring to you. That's what his kingdom's about. His death is how he fills your cup, and his resurrection is how you know it will never go dry. Jesus came to bring you joy. That's the invitation. Let me pray. Lord, thank you again for the fact that fundamentally you are a God of joy. And we're going to face a lot of sorrows, a lot of disappointments. It's inevitable. And yet we know that your sorrow and your death on the cross provides a way in which the shame and the red solo cup and whatever we're drinking doesn't have to be the end of our story. But your love for us as a groom who delights in his bride, I mean, that's the end of the story. That's where we're headed. That's the wedding that you've invited us to. And so I pray for every young man and young woman in here who are trying to figure out who they are and where to find joy and how to make it in this world. I pray that they would look to you as the God of joy, who brings joy in the midst of their disappointment. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen. Are y'all one more song? And then there's snacks in the back, so head out there and y'all are awesome. Remember, Jesus was not encouraging drunkenness, okay? Another lie. It's about joy. It's a sign, just FYI. And then there's snacks and stuff in the back. Thanks for coming. And oh, keep your masks on until you get off the property. All right, thanks. Woo. Great job. What am I about to do? I guess I'll